Darren Schwartzkopf. I am the Business Development Manager for the Digital Project Delivery group at Trimble. I handle all things state agencies and federal agencies for the entire country. I'm going to ask each one of my panelists to introduce themselves, say where they're from, and throw out a interesting fun fact if possible. So, Keith, if you want to lead.
My name is Keith Fuscher. I am the IT Division Manager for Business Relationship with Arapahoe County. That's a mouthful, and I always enjoy saying that. Basically, I work in the IT department, but support all of the county departments in digital transformation and project delivery. My background is working on asset and land management systems for the last 20, 25 years, both in the private sector and as part of the public sector now. I've been with the county for about 8 years, which is a little scary to think that I've been a public servant. I like that term for the last 8 years, but have enjoyed the challenges and opportunities that brings. Fun fact, I once slept on the street outside Fenway Park for 3 nights in order to get World Series tickets, so I did get the tickets. So it's a long, fun story involving the mafia and lots of rain, so if you want to hear the complete story, hit me up.
Thanks for that. Anna?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Anna Bunce. I am the city traffic engineer for the city of Centennial. Although technically Centennial, part of my fun fact, is a contract city. So the city itself is just over 20 years old, but for 15 years this year, formerly CH2M Hill, otherwise Jacobs Engineering, now has held the public works contract for the city. So we have 50 people or so, including me and all of my staff, who provide these services for the city. We're embedded full time, so you're not going to see me on any proposals or anything, though I think I have some colleagues here that you might run across, which is a little bit unusual. I've been in this industry over 20 years, and I've spent most of that as a public servant on the municipal side of things. And I've spent a few years on the private side, and this is my first sort of public-private thing, and I'm going to say I recommend it. It's a pretty good gig. Centennial also has been voted the 5th best splash pad in the United States by the readers of USA Today. So if anybody hasn't been to the Civic Center Park splash pad off Arapahoe Road, I highly recommend it.
Thank you, Anna. John?
Yeah, hi, I'm John Valines. I'm the South Watershed Manager for the Mile High Flood District. So I oversee the little wedge of the city between I-25 and US 85, as well as part of Douglas County. I'm a civil engineer by training and practice, and I was an urban planner prior to that, so I can build your whole city for you if you want. Just kidding, I cannot do that. A fun fact, I don't know how fun it is, about the flood district is that we manage probably over $150 million a year of funds with less than a staff of 50 people, maybe about half of whom are engineers, so we turn around a lot of work pretty efficiently, we like to think. We used to be called the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District. Now we're doing business as Mile High Flood District. So if you live in Denver and you own property and you see urban drainage and flood control in the South Platte River on your property tax assessment, that's what pays my huge bonus every year. So.
Thanks, John. Janelle?
I'm Janelle Bolter. Thanks for having me. I'm the Director of Infrastructure Management at the Las Vegas Valley Water District, so a little bit of a travel for me. We deliver water in the desert, that's what I like to say. We are experiencing a mega drought from the Colorado River that I'm sure almost everybody's aware of. So that's our main focus right now. So as the Director of Infrastructure Management, I oversee 4 divisions. I've got planning and engineering services, and those are the people that do all of the new development and the planning for our infrastructure, all of our facilities. And then I have asset management, which will maintain all of those assets that we have. Maintenance engineering does primarily rehab projects, but a lot of engineering goes into those rehab projects. And then I have facilities that will maintain all of the infrastructure we have that's not a water infrastructure, but more of the buildings and that. So those are my purview.
Well, excellent. So now that we know who our panelists are and where they're from and what they do, we're going to try to get through 2 rounds. Each one of the panelists have a topic, and I'm going to start with Janelle on deploying AMI, or advanced metering infrastructure, into the distribution center.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, like I said, our main concern is water conservation. That is our guiding light. That's everything that we're moving towards, is to save water. So one of the digital innovations that recently deployed after a long process is our advanced metering infrastructure project. So most people will obviously know your water meter would be read by a person walking down the street and looking at each meter. That transformed into AMR, automated meter reading, by like a truck roll. So the same information gets transmitted with somebody driving by. The full deployment is AMI, which means that that water meter data is sent automatically through a series of repeaters and collectors, and sends back to a central repository at our district. And now we can get real-time water usage reads for every single customer. So we have 440,000 meters in our system, which is a huge lift. And that was 150,000 repeaters and collectors that we had to locate on some of our facilities, but mostly streetlights and other agency infrastructure. So that took many, many, many years to deploy. But having that data at our fingertips will allow us to now save water. So what we use that for primarily is to send leak notifications to the customers on a much more timely basis. So back in the traditional methods, you would get one piece of data once a month. And so if you knew that you had a leak, you couldn't tell that for a whole month. With the AMR data, we would get it back in about a week, and now we're getting data. If you have a leak, we're notifying customers through an SMS, text, or auto dialer system in a 3-day period of time. So constant use for 3 days will trigger this automatic text. So between the years of 2020 to 2023, we sent out like 27,000 leak notifications. Since May that this got fully stood up and all of the data understood, from May until a few weeks ago, we sent more than double that amount in just a couple of months. So not only will that save the customer a high bill, most importantly to us, it is saving that precious water resource. So that's...
Excellent. And I need you to save that water because I live in Phoenix and I'm a recipient.
Yes, so
of some of that
downstream
water,
really
so.
helps. Yeah.
And if they go to the leak detection site, I'm going to have to remind my kids to turn the faucet off while they brush their teeth otherwise, right? So Anna, let's talk about smart community fiber infrastructure insurance.
Yeah, so this is not a new progressive bundle, in case anybody is wondering. But no, about 3 months ago, we started a pilot proof of concept. The city of Centennial has 4 different 432 fiber rings that cover the majority of the city, which the city uses, and some of which is leased out to other customers. And there's actually a public survey out right now if anyone is a resident and would like to provide feedback on the direction that the city might go with some of that fiber in the future. We also have a good amount of traffic and ITS fiber, both our own and shared with Arapahoe County and other folks, smaller strand counts in the area. But, you know, we invest a lot of money in this infrastructure, and then it sits there, and sometimes people bore through it or cut through it or do things to it. And then that costs a lot to fix it. Aside from the downtime and the finger pointing and all the documentation and process that goes with that. So about 3 months ago, we energized 2 of our dark fibers on the central ring for a distributed acoustic sensing pilot. And so we have a company that we're working with that is out of Ohio, veteran-owned, and they're using technology that's been around that the military and the pipelines have been using for 50 or 60 years now. But in this smart community infrastructure application to alert us if there is activity of a certain level that might signify heavy equipment or excavation in the vicinity of our fiber. So that's what we are, if we decide to keep it, paying for is essentially the insurance, the peace of mind that we will get a notification so that we can verify through cameras or sending someone out or other methods what's going on in that area, potentially overlaid with our locate ticket system as well, so that we have a contact if someone is doing work to verify what's going on. It also logs the alerts, so if there were a damage situation, then hopefully that would simplify some of pinpointing exactly where the hit was and who's responsible for it, and being able to provide documentation of that. And then the other layer, that's what you pay for and you hope you don't need, right? I mean, homeowners insurance, car insurance, like you pay for it, medical insurance, you hope you don't need it. But if you do, great. But you want added value. So the other thing that we're hoping to get out of this is an algorithm that also will simultaneously provide information to us about traffic flow and speeds in the vicinity of the fiber for purposes such as pavement condition and incident management, so that we can hopefully be more proactive about those things. So that's sort of the gravy. We pay for the insurance, but we're hoping to get additional functionality out of it as well, and it's going well so far, and it looks super cool. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully giving tours and like showing it off to people. There's a cascading waterfall of information that I think will be helpful for tours and sales. So
Great. So we have the dark web, and now we have dark fiber, right? So progress. John, and this one sounds expensive for some reason, but global scale and hyper-local modeling.
Yeah, well, we're not paying for all of that, first of all, but thinking about your insurance comment, we've used our homeowners insurance policy 3 times in the past year. I'm sure Farmers is not too pleased with us, but yeah, just flashback to that, I guess, PTSD. At the flood district, I wanted to talk a little bit about data and the way that the flood district uses data. We have data that comes from so many different sources, from really, really huge scale, like global meteorological models, these big ensemble models that take into account climate change and other factors to try to predict the weather, right? We use those for flood warning and flood prediction, all the way down to hyperlocal modeling, which is really looking at like a square meter on the ground and trying to predict how much water is going to run off at this point, in any given storm event. And then things in between, there's H&H modeling for those of you who are engineers in the audience. And then everything in between, we use gauge adjusted radar rainfall, which is using stream gauges and rain gauges as well as radar to try to have more accurate predictions about where rain and water are going to run off. So we have this data that's coming at us from all these different directions and all these different scales that we didn't have 5 or even 10 years ago. We didn't have any of this information to be able to do our jobs, and we were kind of working almost in the dark, making the best judgment calls that we can. Today, we have the opposite problem. We have so much information that oftentimes we don't know what to do with it. We live in this like ocean of information, and we're like trying to find the horizon, and some people are kind of shying away from technology and data because of that. But you don't always know what's going to be useful until you have it in your hands, until you can see it. Like people didn't understand what the iPhone was until they actually held it and touched it and realized that it was going to change their life. So these kind of data and technologies that go along with it require a certain type of an appetite for risk and for exploration and for experimentation and trying things that are new, and they're not always going to pan out. Sometimes you spend money on stuff that doesn't hit the mark. But the reason that we're doing all those things is because we have this hope, at least, that technology and data are really going to be able to improve our lives, to enable us to do better work, to give better outcomes to people, to make our jobs hopefully easier, at least maybe even more fun, if that's a possible goal in all of this, and free up time for human beings to do things that are uniquely human. Add value, to do creative work, to solve problems, to build relationships, to have innovation, and excitement about things that computers can't do. Let computers and technology do that stuff. It's the stuff that I call mental overhead, which is just managing logistics about what data is out there, what it tells you, what the next step in a process is, all that kind of stuff. Let computers and technology do that, and then we can really leverage data to free up time, which is the whole point. Otherwise, what are we doing it for? What's the point of having the data if it doesn't actually make our jobs better in some meaningful way? So we're trying to developed some tools that help us do that at the district, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in the next go around.
Excellent, excellent. Keith, streamlining permit digital interfaces.
Wow, that sounds impressive. I suppose I should talk about that. One of the things we've done on the digital transformation, particularly since COVID, has been to look at how we are delivering and servicing our customers on the permitting and land management side. I think in the past, we've spent a lot of effort on improving internal processes, i.e. how does it help our internal staff do things quicker, faster, better? And all of that has been really fantastic, but COVID was really a jump start for us to look outside of our internal staff, and understand what our customers want and what our customers need. And I think one of the things we've tried to do is really look at those customers in different lenses, right? So it might be a homeowner who's replacing a water heater. They might have different needs, different skill sets than working with a construction company. So we've tried to really focus on what are those needs from a technology perspective as well as a process perspective to meet the needs of those different, what we call personas. So we spend a lot of time talking to our customers, working with our customers. And if there's anybody in here that wants to, talk about how Arapahoe County might improve the way we service you, that we would love to do that. We've tried to get those conversations going, but we always encourage more. And what we're learning is that there's a different way to provide those services to different customer sets. So if we're working with a large builder who's putting in a lot of tract homes, they may not want to submit every single permit the same at a different track. They may just want to give us all that data immediately. Whereas if we're working with a homeowner, they want very clear, very easy to use processes, and they may want. Everybody wants to do it online now. That was something we fought with our public works department for many years. And when COVID came, everything went online, and suddenly Public Works said, "Oh, I guess everyone does want to do it online." But that was a huge change management issue, and a lot of this is change management. One of the things we found is we had a very complex, and I still think we have a very complex application process. At one time, you had to fill out this large application. You had to read all of these PDFs, and at the end, you put your address in, and oftentimes people found out that they lived in Centennial. They didn't live in Arapahoe County, and so all that time was wasted. So we've tried to look at it from that perspective and say, hey, the first thing we should ask is, where do you live? People don't know whether they should go to Arapahoe County or Centennial or to Aurora or to Lone Tree. It's very confusing to them. So we put that right at the beginning. And if they are in Centennial, let's give them a link to Centennial. Let's help solve their problem rather than worrying about what our internal process is. So that's been a lot of internal change management. It's been a lot of data management. Data is now huge and is going to continue to be huge in managing this sort of transformation. But it's also that human factor in interfacing with our customers and understanding how we can provide services better.
Excellent. So we're right at 21 minutes, so it appears we will make it through round two. So Janelle, let's go back to you and let's talk about access to the right construction drawings for field work.
Yeah, actually, we also went through the exact same online digital plan submission process right before COVID, and it was really good timing to do that when everyone was sent home and had to work remotely. And it has, allowed us to also collaborate with our city and county really well too, because many times a water project also has a city component or a county component, or the opposite way. The county project needs to come in and have us review it. So we've done a ton of digital transformation with online plan reviews as well. But going back to the topic I was going to talk about is the use. It's a company called Red Eye gave us this solution. It is a way to store all of our construction drawings in the cloud. And then if that's available, all of the construction drawings for any project you want is now available in the field on an iPad. So for most utilities, about 75% of our workforce is in the field. And so why do we have the drawings in some vault, some hard copy access to it? And so this was a huge transformation to make to just allow like an inspector, the way we use it, the way that is most transformative is that an inspector can now have access to all the drawings. So I don't need to necessarily have one inspector work one job from start to finish. I can have any of the inspectors go to any of the jobs. They can all pull up the same drawings and what they need to access. And then they would do their as-builts right then and there, right on the paper, right on the iPad. They can mark it up, and they have consistent blocks that are added, so you don't have to handwrite anything. It's all very digital now and much cleaner. So you don't have the full-size sets of drawings that get dirty, they get thrown away, they get rained on, those types of things. Everything is automatically done just at your fingertips. And one of the best things about that is now that as-built information, it's uploaded every single night. So somebody who needs that information in doing design or sending out the most recent as-builts to a developer that's asking for construction drawings, now we have real-time data. We don't have to wait for the whole project to get done, then it gets sent to QA/QC, then it gets loaded in, and all of that kind of, it might take a year to 2 years to get an as-built drawings loaded into the system. So with this technology, we literally have it every single day. Our as-builts are getting done and are being used more in real time. So that's been it's been a huge change for us, and much less mistakes are made. People aren't starting designs off of old drawings. They're using the most recent drawings. And all of this is also linked to our Esri solution, our mapping solution, which is also available right on everybody's iPads. So the changes that we've made for our field workers has been tremendous in the past about 5 years. I don't know how they did work beforehand, really. It's just everything took so much more time because they would have to go drive back to the office, figure something out, go back out to the field. And now this is all very hands-on, and it gives them a lot more autonomy and power in their work. So that's it.
Excellent, excellent. And then Anna, we're going to go back to you for the next level vision, zero analytics.
Yeah, so this is going to get a little trafficky for a minute. So it's those of you who aren't traffic folks, maybe you learned something, maybe you tune out, I don't know. But so in Centennial, both our crash rates and numbers of crashes or frequency are actually pretty low, despite the fact that most of our traffic signals are located on major arterials like Arapahoe Road and Dry Creek Road. So that's good, but it still leaves some questions about, Vision Zero is sort of predicated around, eliminating crashes, but a lot of it revolves around, is there a before that you can mitigate into an after that's a zero? And we don't really have much of a before. So the question is, what don't we know out there? Because you can't address it if you don't know it. So we actually, on Tuesday, are scheduled for the hardware installation of a analytic model that will overlay onto our existing video detection at some of our traffic signals, and it will capture various types of information, including wrong way drivers and that sort of thing. But what I'm really interested in is left turns, permissive left turns, where you can make the movement on a green ball or a flashing yellow arrow. And do we have a near miss pattern at any of these locations consistently or by time of day? So we're before the crashes even, because it's great to mitigate something that already exists, but if we can stop it before it even actually happens, then hopefully that takes us to a different place in terms of being proactive rather than reactive. So we're hoping to use that to assess, do we have these near miss patterns, and then can we mitigate that by installation of upgraded retrofit displays like flashing yellow arrow that gives us more time of day control, and when we need to make those changes by time of day, they're software driven. So once the display and the hardware is in there, if we need to expand a restriction or reduce a restriction and change a condition, then we can do that from our central system on a rolling basis. And the other thing that I'm really excited about with this particular system is there's a lot of folks in this market over the last few years that are selling these kinds of cloud-based algorithms and predictive analytics and all this stuff. Some of them are standalone. Some of them want you to buy their thing, their video detection or their other thing. And so the nice thing about this, theoretically, is that it will layer on anybody else's stuff. It is hardware agnostic. And so I don't have to go out and change out a bunch of things that we already invested a lot of money in purchasing, and we hopefully can then move it around. So that's what I'm hoping, is that that will help us drive some of our budget decisions and prioritize safety in a proactive way for the public and reducing crashes or before they actually even happen.
Excellent. And John, MHFD Confluence tool? I got
Yeah,
that correct?
MHFD Confluence. It's a software program that we're building. So I talked a little bit about the ocean of data thing. Think of MHFD Confluence as the boat that we're trying to build to like make sense of all of this. We want to take all this data that we have on the back end, and the back end. One of my coworkers likes to give the example of his Tesla. He loves his Tesla, which is like the most, amazing piece of technology that consumers can buy, but the user experience is super, super simple. But it's underlaid by all this amazing stuff that most people don't care about, and they never want to see. Because they don't need to. And we're trying to do something similar with our data and our programs. So taking all this information and boiling it down into what is meaningful for decision making for our partners and for ourselves, and letting everyone look at the same type of information. So we knew a web-based platform was going to be critical to be able to do that. We decided to build this program from the ground up, totally from scratch, which is, I think, the more interesting story than exactly what it does. Because like I said, we're a small organization, 50 people, most of whom are engineers. We're not software developers, but we said, hey, we're going to do this. And when I say from scratch, I literally mean, from 4 years ago, just napkin drawings, to now we've been in part of every pixel and color and font choice and everything that's going into making this thing happen. There's still a long way to go. But we made that choice because we felt like it was more important to have a tool that did exactly what we wanted and was something great, for our specific purpose, which is kind of a niche thing that we're doing, really. And there wasn't anything on the market, frankly, that did that, and that really took projects from cradle to grave. And we wanted something that was going to be able to help people make better decisions about what projects they should be doing by looking at problem areas, and then actually manage those projects in cooperation with our external partners in the same platform, and just kind of evolve that piece of data until it turns into an actual thing in the ground that we can monitor and then do maintenance on in the future, then complete the whole life cycle. So we're just beginning this kind of endeavor, and we modeled it after real estate websites, interestingly enough, like Redfin and Zillow and Airbnb, because what they do is really very similar to what we do in terms of managing a point in space and putting attribute data to that point in space. Their properties are quite similar to how we manage our projects and what we call our problem areas. So if you go to the website and look at it, you'll see a lot of similarities to those types of platforms, and they were a good inspiration for us. But yeah, we decided to take on something that was really out of our wheelhouse, because we wanted to be able to have all of our partners singing from that same sheet of music, and to be able to make this data really, truly meaningful. And we look at it as like a generational project, something that's going to take another 10 years and many evolutions to finish. And I'm not going to say that it's the easy way to go. We talked about design build and some of the other routes of contract management earlier that are maybe a little bit more time consuming. Similar with this, we put in thousands of hours. We have daily stand-up meetings. We have staff that are fully dedicated to this now. But it's because we think it's one of the most important things we can be doing on that side of the house, to build this type of tool that really enables us to make great decisions and free up that time, like I was talking about before, to do more human stuff and just do less logistical kind of paper shuffling, which all of us obviously want to do, because we want data to be able to work for us, not the other way around. So if you're interested in checking it out, you can go to YouTube and just search for MHFD Confluence, and there's a little promo video on there. It's about 3 minutes. It's a couple years old now, so it's somewhat out of date, but it still gives you a good sense of what the program does. And then you can go to our website at mhfd.org, and there's a link to it where you can log on and check it out. The boat that we're building at this point, it's kind of a raft still, so don't expect too much, but you can get the vision for where it's going. It's going to be like a really badass Coast Guard cutter by the time it's done. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And then I saved this one for last because I never thought I would say this word in a topic. But Keith is going to talk about utilizing chatbots.
So one of the things that we've heard as we've talked to customers is they want different ways to interact with us. They may want to come into the office and then follow up with an email and then receive chat back or a phone call back. But what we've heard is we want to interact with you how we want, when we want, and it's going to change. It may be different, but we want it to be seamless. So one of the things that we are experimenting with is not only enabling phone calls and walk-ins, which are fairly traditional, and emails, which are fairly traditional, but we started to implement chatbots. It's been a very interesting process because the change management internally has been extremely challenging. And to get people to understand that when that chat pops up, it's like somebody standing in front of you talking to you, and you need to react to them immediately. You can't continue to work on what you're working on. There's very low tolerance there. They want to, when somebody chats, they expect to be heard immediately. On the external side, it's been extremely positive. We've had over a 90% positive feedback on our surveys that we've done, and so we're trying to expand and figure out exactly where we span. That one of the other challenges we've run into is once you open that door in one area, like we started in, what's the status of my permits? We get huge numbers of calls on that. Where's my project at? When are you going to be done with plan review? So we were trying to reduce the amount of phone calls coming in and emails coming in with the chats, and we've done that. But then they start to ask questions like, when can I come in and get my driver's license? When can I vote? You know, things like that. So we've had to be a little intentional about how broad we make it, because our customers want to make it extremely broad immediately, which is understandable. So we're kind of taking a pause at the moment, and we're going to try to roll it out a little broader across the entire county next year. But what we've realized is extremely positive feedback from our customers. This is absolutely something they want. A lot of people, I'm sure there's people out here who want to, you know, sometimes I prefer to chat than make a phone call. It's just simpler in some instances. So that's something we feel like we have to do. But the change management internally is really, really important. And we're going to have to do a lot more training than we thought. We're going to have to do a lot more convincing than we thought we were going to have to do. We thought it would be relatively simple. It's not simple. So we're kind of recalibrating how we do that. But it's been a really interesting experiment. And I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's just going to expand at the county.
Excellent. So those were the topics, and we've got 7 minutes left. And I swore that I would not throw a curveball at anybody, but I'm going to ask Janelle. She's already getting tense, right? One thing, and I think I know this about your agency, but you, on your digital transformation of what you were doing, you weren't dealing with just Las Vegas Valley Water Department. You were also bringing in another whole entity in Southern Nevada Water Authority, if I'm not mistaken. Can you share with the group kind of what that was like to bring basically two agencies into one?
Sure. The Southern Nevada Water Authority is the wholesaler, and they give then water to the different entities, Las Vegas Valley Water District being the biggest of those utilities. But we also have City of Henderson, Boulder City, North Las Vegas, Nellis Air Force Base, which are other water utilities that are just literally neighbors to us. And so my title is LVVWD/SNWA. We are one and the same. We're sister agencies. Most of our employees share two hats. There are a few people that strictly, like distribution workers, they're strictly for Las Vegas Valley Water District. There is not distribution workers for SNWA. So they're the wholesale water utility. They take the water from the Lake Mead. We have the intakes, we have the water treatment plants, all SNWA. So there's quite a few people that are only SNWA. And then the water is turned out at turnouts, that's what we call it, into the different entities, and that's where it changes from SNWA to LVVWD. And LVVWD is the distribution system. So I don't know that it's that much of a challenge. We think of it as one company. There's different data, different needs, because one's talking about wholesale water and the other is talking about the customer interaction and the things in the actual city. So it's certainly a lot to handle, but it's the same data. We don't really feel, I don't think we think of different solutions for the two different companies. But we're doing a whole lot of other interesting things on digital innovation. We've got a lot of leak detection going on. within the distribution system. Not the other one I was talking about, that's on the customer side of the meter, but we're also deploying a lot of different digital innovations in the leak detection. We have a program called VODA, and that is giving us a percent they can tell us what pipes will break, and that's an AI tool, and what pipes would break, the highest probability of the pipes breaking. So we're using that to prioritize our capital improvement plans and pipeline replacements, trying to get out in front of the breaks, because you can fix a pipe a whole lot cheaper than handling an actual broken pipe with all of the damage that does. So those are a couple other really interesting things. I could probably go on and talk for the whole entire conference about all the different things that we're doing in the digital space. So those are a couple other interesting ones.
Yep, and with 3 minutes and 40 seconds, any other panelists would want to talk about anything that they're doing that was not one of your topics? There you go.
There we go. I'll just conclude by saying, yeah, I think data and AI are two things that are going to just totally change our world in the next 10 years. We're very similar. We're getting overrun with the amount of data that's being generated today. But it's also pretty exciting because some of the tool sets that are now available to look at that data and analyze that data are really becoming operational and are becoming very easy for people to use. You don't need a dedicated data scientist now to take a look at data and derive insights from it. I just saw a demo yesterday from Google where they were looking at some crime data from Los Angeles and just real language querying of that data with the media results, and that's something that would have taken days to do before, and now is being done in seconds. So it's a pretty exciting time from the IT side. We also really want to focus on open sharing and partnering with other jurisdictions and with the private sector on all of this, because we can't do it alone. But I think it's a pretty exciting time to be involved in this space.
Yeah, I'll follow up on, you guys both mentioned AI. I think that's something that people have a lot of feelings about. Is AI going to become conscious and all this kind of stuff? Is it going to kill us all? Yada yada. The truth is, it's really, really far from that. What we're calling AI is really just like complex math to be able to process data, and that's what it's really, really good at: processing images and text. If you can imagine in our field where we can actually see the infrastructure that we're working with because it's on the ground, open channels. If you could fly drones around and then have AI just look at the stream and see, is it moving? Is there bank erosion here? Is there a failure of this structure because the picture has changed from what it was before? That's the kind of stuff that AI can do, and that's the kind of thing that can free. It's not going to make a decision about what to do about it, but we kind of call it triage. It's out there looking and seeing, like, okay, something's going on. We have to diagnose it and see if it's a real issue, and that's when the human factor comes in. And in the past, we've just relied on, if something is broken, then we hear about it. But now we have technologies that allow us to be more proactive and more predictive, and free up the work to actually do more, interesting, creative, what I like to call human stuff. So yeah, I think AI is going to be a big part of our future, and hopefully a positive part.
So I would just say, and I know people say this a lot, I think the challenge with data, of course, is the shiny and versus actionable, digestible information. One of the things in transportation engineering and intelligent transportation systems and smart cities, smart community things is so many pieces of information we can get out of our system now. But is that accessible to the public? Do they understand what that means? Do they care? Does that make any difference to them? If somebody calls me and says my commute on this roadway really sucks, and I'm like, yeah, but we increased your arrival on green percentage from like 7 to 10. They still don't care. That's nice. Like maybe they'll listen to me, but that's the thing I would say to developers and vendors and providers. All these things are great for us. I have a lot of good information for us. I have to have time to look at it. I have to have resources to look at it. I have to have resources to do something about what it's telling me. But also, most importantly, I have to be able to turn around and give that to the public in a way that is meaningful and accessible to them. And that's where I think a lot of the things that we're being sold don't follow through all the way. If I say to you, what are your graphics? What are your outputs? How does somebody understand that? What does that mean to them? A lot of people don't have an answer for that. So that'd be my wish list item. Please make that better for the public.
Excellent. Well, that is our time. That is our session. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ken. Thank you.